welcome back to Pommyinoz. I hope we're all doing really well. If you are new around here, please drop a like, please drop a subscribe. It does mean the world to me. Well, what we're doing today is we're looking at another team, and this time it's my own team, Carlton Football Club. So without any further ado, let's get straight into it. For 2020, it was a real, I hate to use the R word, but it was a real year of rebuild, wasn't it, for Carlton? They started to turn a corner. We saw under Teague, it was a lot different to what the Carlton faithful have seen in the last couple of years. They ended up finishing 11th with 7 wins. And for long-suffering Carlton fans, it was one of the few times that you really did start to believe, particularly in recent memory and since I've been in this country. Finals was in the sights for the majority of 2020, it has to be said. But one area of concern was the run-ins. They allowed the opposition 9 times to kick 5 or more, and that unanswered goals, and that was a big stage in the season, and a lot of them games they'll look back at and think they should have won. It will leave Carlton fans a sense of what if, really. They could have finished as high as 6th or as low as 16, because a staggering 6 games were settled by 1 or more scores. The positives were clear though. It was a fast, quick game plan that was direct. That is the modern times. And no longer does it look like they set up not to concede, they actually look like they're going to impact a game. A real takeout for the Blues as well will have been form of players. Walsh in the back end was unstoppable at times, and he was polling elite for the last half of the season in every major midfield category. Another guy that they'll be excited about as well is Doc. Doc, after 2 years out, played the whole season, and although Carlton didn't make finals, they did go a long way to showing the AFL that they are more of the real deal as opposed to a good marketing story. 2021 then, when you look at the recent development of the side that went from no finals to being competitive, we'll start with St Kilda. Business is done in the off-season and it allows you to traject into the 8. And Carlton this year were no different. They were super active, identifying 2 key players in their areas of concern, Zachy Williams and Adam Sard. And that is quite an interesting one for Carlton. Cade Simpson was more of a ball-playing accumulator type footballer, where Adam Sard is more of a run and stun type footballer, and it provides that much needed energy and zip that is needed from a tactical standpoint in Teague's game. Also, when we look at the run-ons, a lot of them teams are notoriously for their high forward press, and one of the only ways to negate that is often by running it off half-back and forcing them back. He literally slots into that role, and I suspect to see that make an impact almost immediately. They also identified another area of concern for Carlton, and that was Teague talks about tackles inside 50 and forward pressure, and they signed Lockie Fogarty, who is an actual tackling machine. He really does personify that. He's energetic, he's lively, and he also fits into the category for Teague of being versatile. He can play on the ball, he can play around the middle, and he can play up forward. So he's a really exciting addition to that team. If you look at that as well with Zachy Williams coming into it, who is a clean, proficient user, and he demonstrated in the prelims a couple of years ago just how devastating he is when he's on the ball. And in the small section of games we've seen in the pre-season, he's really shown he's got high football IQ and he attacks the ball with intent. That midfield at Carlton Football Club does look elite when it's on its best, and it will make other teams take note. From a tactical standpoint of Carlton Football Club, we know that they were kick heavy this year, and one thing that will have delighted Carlton fans is they've added a handball chain into this group, which they kind of have to with the players that have now come in, and that is really exciting. Obviously, one of the tactical negatives of being a kick heavy side is if you're not accurate and you don't hit targets, you effectively give up possession and allow teams to play with the ball. When that happens with a lot of the top 8 sides particularly, it spells disaster. And moving forward, there's been a clear tactical change to run and carry with the ball and get them link-up plays. It will take a couple of games, in my opinion, to blood in, because some of the changes to this side aesthetically are absolutely huge in a system standpoint. But once it gets going, look out. I think they'll do really well. Ones to watch then this year. And the first guy we're going to pick on is none other than Samuel Walsh. Now, he went up a gear in the back half of last year after a very slow start by his own standards in 2020. And there is no getting away from it. This guy is an absolute jet. One thing that will excite Carlton fans is he's a penchant for kicking goals last year. Towards the end of last year, he really did look to get forward and penetrate forward 50. And goal-kicking mids are the commodity in the AFL. If we look at his career averages for someone so young, they are actually spectacular. 23.1 disposals, 4.8 marks, 3 tackles, and just under half a goal a game, which is really superb for someone so young. He's been given a lot of game time and he's been given a lot of responsibility. And when I expect to see him really go up a gear. I think now when you've got Williams there and Cripper hopefully back to his best for Carlton, now he's put the body size on, he's going to find a little bit more time. And when you've got 3 dynamic players like that, it's going to be very hard to stop. You can often tag 1, you can certainly sometimes tag 2, but to stop 3 people is almost impossible structurally. So he will be one person from game to game will benefit from Williams and Cripper's combination. An absolute supreme footballer. He's got time, he makes time, he's very, very smart footballer, and he's very strong as well in the air, which is an understated part of his game. I think he'll go up a gear this year and really drive them on. The other guy we're going to take a look at is none other than meters gained specialist Zachy Williams. Now, Zachy Williams is a really interesting proposition for Carlton because he didn't probably spend as much time on the ball as we expect. If we actually look at his career statistics, bearing in mind that this includes his halfback stats, he averages 19.6 touches a game, 4 marks, 3.1 tackles and 0.2 goals per game. If we actually look at the times though that and we negate that to just his midfield minutes, it looks a little bit different. He actually averages 22.1 touches, 3.4 tackles and 0.32 goals a game, which I think is really important because I would expect to see them kind of be his numbers moving forward. I'd also expect to see them goals go up because watching him in the pre-season, he looks like he's got a bit of a license to roam, a little bit creative. He is really energetic. We know he attacks the ball hard. He looks to take off. And you look at him in his careers as well. He has finished consistently in 2019. He finished top 10 for totals meters gained and also kicks and kicking efficiency in the AFL, which is a super important kind of little facet for Carlton because we know that they do kick more than the handball and he suits the bill. He is a proficient user. He has had games as well where he's really got off the chain, and we do talk a lot about some of them games, but if people go back round 20 in 2019, he had that 32 touch game in midfield with 6 tackles and he absolutely ran Sydney ragged. So we know what he's capable of. When he gets off the chain, he's deadly, but he is an X-Factor player and he is someone I expect to see hit the ground running from round 2 now. And the final guy we're going to look at is Zach Fisher. Now, Zach Fisher, we know last year he redeveloped his role as a small forward, and Carlton have been crying out for a small forward, probably for the best part of a decade almost. And we look at his career numbers, they are pretty impressive, bearing in mind sometimes they were midfield, but that's 15.9 touches, 1.8 marks, 3 tackles, and 0.4 goals a game. It is interesting if we take them just into a small forward role, they become 13.4 touches, 1.6 marks, 2.5 tackles and 0.8 goals a game. And it is very interesting with Zach Fisher that if we look at last year, for the back half of the year, particularly when he came back into the side, he did rate elite for nearly all the categories that we'd look at in a small forward. And he is definitely someone that has the potential to be lightning. We know in the pre-season games he's been a natural accumulator, even though he's been playing in that small forward role. We know Teague likes to disperse his players and get them to play all around the ground. And he's a very dangerous and he's a very cunning player. He will be a guy that I expect to see, and I wouldn't be surprised to be top 3 Carlton goal kickers and really put a bit of pressure on. He's going to really benefit from having that forward setup that Carlton have, and he knows how to read the crumbs. He reads the ball off the pack well. He's a natural footballer and he's the natural son and heir really to Eddie Betts. Really excited about this kid, and he's going to have a huge year, mark my words. So what's the success for the Carlton Football Club? Well, it's got to be finals as a bare minimum requirement. The noise coming from Carlton's board of directors, coaches, captains has all been the same thing. It's their finals ready, and history would suggest it is entirely possible. If we look, 2016 Richmond, they went from 13th to 8th. 2017 Collingwood, 13th to 8th. And St Kilda last year, they went from 14th to 8th. When we look at the age profile of the Blues, we look at the statistical breakdown, they are well within the medians of them teams. They have the game plan, it's expansive and it's aggressive, and like the Saints and Richmond, it's going to be a case of how long do they dare play this game plan in game and are willing to play it under pressure. It's something we saw with Richmond. The game plan was always there in 2016, eventually it clicked in 2017, they backed it in. This year's about impacting games, not reacting to games. I back them in and I think they'll finish anywhere between 6th and 10th. They are an 8 side. You look at this list, and I know that people might disagree because they hate Carlton at times and they laugh, and I appreciate that. But look at this list. This list isn't bad. It's a solid list, and it has to be now. The time is now for this football club. That's Carlton Football Club. Let me know where you think they finish. Who are you worried about if you're an opposite fan? Who do you think's Carlton's best player? Who are you wary about, if anyone? Let's have a conversation about it. Until next time, I'm out.